What's up, YouTube? In this video, we're going to be creating a slider kind of inspired by this website here. I'll leave a link to the original website and the Creators Awards page if you'd like to see who designed and built this in the description below. But we'll be building something new kind of inspired by this functionality. This was something requested recently that I'll try to recreate. Now, I've tried a first example of this using Swiper, and it didn't quite work out just because some of the limitations with Swiper. So I think the best bet to create this will be to make a custom slider using GSAP. So that's what we're going to try out today, just building this out. So I'll hop over to Webflow and let's drop in a div, and I'll just call this slider wrap. So this is the main parent for everything we're going to have going on with our slider. And inside that, I'll drop in a collection list and I'll pull it from my works collection. And I'll go ahead and give this wrap a collection, a class of slider CMS wrap. And inside that, we can have a slider CMS list. And inside that, we can have a slider CMS item. So we're going to want our list here to have a height of 100 VH, so it fills the screen height, and a position of relative. And then we'll grab our items and we'll position them all absolute to cover the full width and height of their parent. So all our items are kind of resting on top each other like so. And then from there, what we're going to want to do is drop in an image element, and I'll just choose an image, or actually I'll link it to a collection field of image, and we'll just give this a class of slider CMS image like so. And we're going to want to make sure this image is position absolute to cover the full width and height of its parent, give it a height of 100%, fit of cover, and so everything's set there, good to go. Now with the item selected, I'm going to give it some padding. I've created a padding variable of 4 viewport width. I'm just going to apply that to all sides of this item for a minute, just so we can have some content inside. And let's just make sure this is all linked up, and that's good. And inside that, I'll also drop in a text block, and we'll just call this slider CMS title. And I'll just pull this from my title field, and I'll give this a relative z-index 2, so it sits on top the image. Actually, let's not apply a z-index to it. That way it's just right on top of the image. There we go. And let's bump up the font size a bit. We'll do something like this is probably good. Let's give it a max width using CH, so it's based on the width of the characters, just to get it to wrap somewhere like that. And then I think what I'll do is apply flex to align these items to the bottom, like so. Justify bottom, and that looks pretty good. I might back down the line height on this just a little bit. Okay. And let's drop in, so we have this part set up. We're going to need the slider dots too. And for that, what I'll do is drop a collection list, and we'll call this slider, we'll call this dot wrap, and we'll have inside a slider dot list. And then in that, we'll have a slider dot item. And what we can do, I'll move this dot wrap to the top. We'll position it absolute to the top of its parent slider wrap, which means this wrap will need a position of relative. So we have that. We're going to grab the list, and let's just, well, first of all, let's connect it to our collection like so. There we go. Let's give the list some padding on all sides of that same page padding variable, just to make sure these dots align with our content. So I'll just throw that on there. I'll give this list 100% width of its parent, and I'll give this wrap 100% width of its parent. And then we have these items all stacking under each other. So what we can do is give these items a width, maybe something like 2 rem or 5 rem, that's good. And give it a height of something like 2 pixels. And let's give it a background color. I'll do white sort of at a transparency here. And I'm going to give this slider wrap z-index of 2, so it sits on top of the CMS background. And let's click the list, apply flex, and that way all of these go side by side. We'll give it a gap, maybe something like 1 rem, so we're spacing these items out. And inside these items, we're going to want a line that'll fill up the item. So we can call this slider.line, and I will give this 100% width and 100% height of its parent, and I'll give this a background color of white. And we're going to be applying a transform to animate it using move. So if we move it over like 50% or something, it would slide out past its parent, which means its parent here, the item, needs overflow hidden and position relative, just so it crops that little line inside. And we'll have the starting point for all of our lines be negative 100%. So they're just completely out of view like that. So that's good. That's our text. And I think that's everything we need for the structure for now. What I will do, I'll add in just some link blocks to be able to click next and previous. So, and actually those should probably be custom elements buttons. So I'll just call this slider CMS, or not even CMS, just slider button. And we will give this a position of absolute to the top of its item. We'll give this a width of 50%, height of 100% of its parent. So if we click on this side of the screen, it should take us to the next slide. I'll duplicate this again, give this a class of isPrev, and we'll absolute it to the other corner. So if we click on this one, it should go to the previous. This one should go next. Let's give this, make sure it's tagged as button, and do the same for this one. Let's zero out the paddings, and should be doing this on the base, on the not combo. So let's zero out the paddings, and let's remove the background color. There we go. And let's just throw on an area label next slide. And on this one, we'll throw area label previous slide. And we still want the actual text to be clickable. So to do that, first of all, let me grab these buttons. Let's give them a z-index 2. Okay, yeah, so we'll give this z-index 2. We will give this wrap, it had a z-index. I'm going to remove that. And what I'll do is apply the z-index directly to the items of 3. So the items themselves, whoops, that jumped me down to the third breakpoint. The items themselves sit on top of these clickable link blocks. So we can actually click the items or the links. And then we want the title to sit on top of these links as well. So inside this wrap, we can grab this title. And I think we'll actually just drop a link block actually in here and link it to the collection page for that item and drop the title in there. And I'll just give this a class of slider CMS link. And I'll give that a position relative z-index of 3. So just this part sits on top of these links like so. And then let's also give it a font color of light. There we go. So all our titles are sitting on top these next and previous buttons. These are on top as well. So we can click on everything we need to be able to click on. And I think that's all we need for the structure. So what we can do next is head to gsap.com/install, and we'll head over to the CDN tab. And I think all we'll need is GSAP for this. So I can just grab the GSAP link directly. Let's head over to page settings, throw it in here. We'll also be using split type. So I'll just search for the split type library real quick, have it saved right here. Split text into spans. So I'll just copy that and throw it right under here. And let's also add in a code sandbox file just to write all of our code. So we'll script src, there we go. I'll come over here to my sandbox file, copy this URL and paste it in here, and we'll target script.js. Let's save that and let's publish it. And we can start building this out. So I'm going to collapse that. Let's open this up. There we go. And let's, that's all good. Okay. Yeah. So let's start writing out our code. So the first thing we're going to do is get this working, even if there's multiple instances of a slider on the same page. So for that, we're going to use a jQuery each loop. So I'll just target that slider wrap class. We'll do .each, and we'll just loop through each slider wrap. And then we want to get the elements inside this wrap that we're going to need. So we'll know we'll have these slider buttons, and I'll just save this. Let child button elements be this wrap that we're looping through, and then we'll find the slider buttons inside. And then we'll also need all of these items. So I will say let child items equal this, which is the slider wrap we're looping through, and we'll find the CMS items. And then we'll also need these slider dots, these items here. So I'll say let child dots equal this dot find, and we'll get the slider dots. So we have the, and maybe I should call this arrow to be more specific, even though it's not really an arrow, but this is our next improve arrows. These are our items. These are our dots. Let's see if there's anything else we need right now. I think that should be good. So what we want to do is create kind of a dynamic function where we can pass in if we want the slider to go forwards or backwards. And we want to always be able to find the slide we're on and the slide we're going to. So for instance, if we take a look at this, so whenever we're going forwards, this text slides up like so. And whenever we're going backwards, the same text slides from down. So if we're going forwards, the text should slide from up. If we're going backwards, the text should slide from down. And whenever we're going forwards, if you notice the clip path, it came in kind of at this angle. So this top corner was lagging behind the other one. Whereas when we're going backwards, it comes down at this angle. It slides over. So the top one's still lagging behind the top corner. So the angle that we take our clip path from should change depending on if we're going forwards or backward. And the direction of the text sliding up or down should change depending on which direction we're coming from. So let's head back to over here. So I think what we'll do is probably, let's create a click event for the child arrow first. And I'll do child arrow EQ 0. So that should get me the previous arrow. And we can do on click. We can create, or let's do on. We'll pass in click, create a function. And this will be, we'll call this go prev. So this is our function to go to the previous. And let's create another one, child arrow EQ1. So that grabs the second arrow within this component. And we'll say go next. And this will be our function for going next. And so we'll want to create a function. And I'll probably just make this like one function to move slide. And we can pass into the function if we want to go forward or backward. That way we're keeping most of our interaction code the same and just change the pieces that we want. So yeah, that's looking good. And then we'll probably always want to store what the active item is. So I'll just create a variable called active index, and I'll set that to 0 by default, since the active one is going to be the first slide by default. And this will allow us to keep track of what the previous slide was and which slide we're going to, kind of thing. So yeah, that's good there. And then from there, I think we can start creating some animations. So we're going to, I guess whenever we move the slide, we'll pass in an index of what slide we want to move to. So like if I click on this, I could say go to slide 3 in the list, or slide 4, whatever we want to do there. So that's good. And we'll always have the previous index. So let's see. What we'll probably do is a GSAP.to. GSAP, oops. Let's do a GSAP. Actually, we'll probably do a from to. And we will have, I'll say let next item equal our child items EQ and whatever the next index is we passed in. And I'll say let prev item equal our child items EQ and whatever the previously active index was. So on page load, that should be the first item 0. And then when we run this for the first time, I'm just going to make this run on page load and switch to slide 2. So when we run for the first time, our next item coming in will be slide 2. The previous one going out will be slide 0. And we'll create some sort of animation here where we animate these 2 slides. And then we're going to update our active index for the next time we click to be equal to this next index that we just created. So that way we click, we go to slide 2, and we create our animation animating the previous slide out, the next slide in. Once we're finished, we update the previous slide to be equal to the one we just passed in. So that way we can keep updating what the previous one was. So now that we have that, we can grab the prev item, and we know we want to animate it out. And so if we take a look at this for a second, I guess we'll start with the next item. Let's go next item, save it. Okay, and let's go here. So what we want to happen with this next item, if I come back here for a second, is we want it to be fully masked, so we're not seeing any of it. And then we want to slide it over the mask to reveal. And we want the top point to be lagging behind. So to do that, we can go to Clippy. And this is just like a clip path visualizer. And we're going to select trapezoid. And so basically the starting point of this next item should be all these dots all the way at the corner. So we shouldn't be seeing any of the next item at all. And when we click, this blue dot should travel first. And the red dot, oops, let's see if we get this. Red dot should be lagging behind. And this is until it eventually becomes fully revealed, that next item. So what I'll do here is move these dots kind of close to where we want them to be. And then I'll just copy this polygon setting right here at the bottom. And we can head back to our code, and we'll do next item.clip path, and would just pass this in. Now for this to work, anything that has 0, we need a % sign behind it. So I'll just add that in. And we're going to animate it. Let me zoom way out. We'll animate it from that clip path value to the new clip path value. And by default, this 90%, we want that dot to be 100%. So this first number is distance from the left, and this second number is distance from the top. So for our first point, if I come back to Clippy for a second, this point here, you'll see that number moving while I animate it here. So we want it to be 100% from the left and 0% off the top. That's that first number. And for this dot too, we want it to be 100% from the left and also 100% from the top. That's where we want the blue one to be. So first dot is 100% from left, 0 from top, and last dot is 100% from left and 100% from top. So the whole item should be completely clipped. We shouldn't be seeing any of it. And then for here, we want to animate this first dot to be 0 and 0 when it's fully revealed. So this red dot, let's see, will go all the way to 0, 0. And this blue dot will go to 0, 100. So the blue dot is this last one. Sorry, so yeah, from the left it should be 0 and 100. But we want it to make it look like the first dot is lagging behind. So to do that, we can actually move this blue dot over by -10. So instead of just going all the way to 0 right here, this blue dot will actually overshoot past the box a little bit, all the way to -10%. And that's what's going to make it look like the blue and the red dot are going at this angle, is the blue dot actually going past the parent a little bit and doing that overshoot. So now if we go ahead and save this, and one thing we will want to do probably is make sure that, I think what we'll do is grab all of our items on page load, child items, and we will hide them. So they're all display none. And then whenever we move to a slide, we will grab child items. We'll just make sure that all our items are hidden again, but we'll grab the previous item and we'll show it. So it'll be display block, and actually it needs to be display flex. So I might have to do .css display flex. So we'll set our previous and next items to flex. So those are the only two showing at a time when we move our slide. So if we save this, let me actually make the duration on this much longer just so we can test. 4 seconds, sure. All right, let's just see what happens. So refresh on page load. We should have a next slide and a previous, and there we go. We get that nice angle coming in there, and it's just animating like so. We could make sure that our previous slide is always on a lower z-index, because if we're going, this works because the second slide was on top of the first one. We're not masking the bottom one at all right now. So we could just make sure that our next slide is always on a higher z-index. But if we do that, if we give a z-index to these items, it's going to make them not be above the button. Like the only way to get these items being underneath these buttons, but their titles being above, is to make sure that these items themselves never have a z-index applied. So we can't do that. That means what we'll probably have to do is mask the previous slide out as well. Just like we're masking the incoming slide in, the previous slide will probably have to mask out. So what we can do is, let's see. So the previous slide, we want it to start fully in view. So it's actually going to start just like this. And what I'll do is just copy all of this and bring it down here. And I will copy this value here for our previous slide. Previous slide, previous item. And we want it to start fully visible. Like so. Those 0% is carried over. Okay. And then what we want to happen is something like this. So the yellow dot going that way, the green dot coming this way. That means the yellow dot is going to have to overshoot past 0 to make this work. So I'll just copy this over, and let's throw this in. 0%, 0%. And this one, instead of 60, it should be at 0%. And this next dot, instead of being at 14, it should offshoot to be negative. So something like negative 10%. And that way we're basically revealing this first one, and then we're masking the second one, the previous one. So when we do that, it should work even if, let's say that our previously active slide was like slide 3, and then the slide we're going to is slide 2. So even if we're going backwards, it should still work. Let's just test that to make sure. No, that's not quite right. Okay, something's not quite working there. So it is, I think maybe I messed up this first value. Let's bring that back. Let's try and copy this over again and see if I messed up this starting value. Let's paste that in there. Yeah, the 100, 0, 100, 100. Yeah, okay, so this didn't match what was in the other one. So let me throw this in real quick. All right, now let's save it and let's try it. So we should be perfect. Yep. So we're unmasking the previous, we're revealing the next one, and now it doesn't matter if we're going forwards or backwards. Should work. Cool. So now that we have that, we can work on animating the text inside. And I had the split text library already. So I'll just copy this and we'll run this just kind of like on page load. Honestly, it doesn't even need to be in the loop. And we want to split up all the titles with this slider CMS title, all these classes. So we'll save that, and it should split them into words and characters. We will, let's see, let me refresh here. So we want to animate, it looks like I'll probably animate each letter out one by one, and then I'll set the words to overflow hidden. That way it masks the words. So in the code, we'll come over to style, we will grab the word class and we'll set it to overflow hidden. And that way we can save that, publish it. And so in here, what we want to happen is let's see, the previous item title doesn't animate at all. It just stays in view and the mask kind of wipes over it. And the next title is the one that enters in. So let's come back over here. So what we can do is we have this next item. I'm probably just going to put this on a timeline. I'll say let TL equal GSAP.timeline and throw this in here. Timeline. We want this step to happen at the same time as the previous one, so we'll do that there. And that way we can wait till the mask finishes wiping before we animate our title in. So for that, we'll do a from to on the next item dot find slider title. So we would just find that title. And actually not just the title, but the characters inside that title chars. And then we can animate them from a Y% of -100 or actually 100. So they'll be down and out of view. And we'll animate them to a Y% of 0. And we'll also stagger them. And I'll just throw on an amount stagger. Let's do amount of 0.5. So they all start within 0.5 seconds. Yeah, let's just see how that looks and see what that does. So we'll refresh here. The swipe finishes. Nope, our characters did not animate. Let's see what I did wrong here. Let me delete these buttons for a second. This is interesting. Word char, not chars. Okay, my bad. So that need to remove that S. Let's save. There we go. And then that comes in. Okay. So what we can do is have this start at like the beginning of the previous step, plus like 50% of the duration of the previous step. So it like starts halfway into this previous step. And what I'll do is throw defaults on the timeline, and let's throw a default duration of 2 seconds for now. And that way we don't need to throw duration on this. And we will just give this a duration of like 0.5. So it returns back to what the duration was. Let's just save that and see what happens. So that finishes. It should be, the title should be animating like halfway in. Let's see, should be animating halfway into this interaction finishing, but we need to see. Things froze up for a second there. Oh no. I think my file might have froze up. Let me just throw in a quick alert. Refresh. Yeah, it froze. So this has been happening to me lately. I just need to rename the file something like scripts.js with an S, save it, come back over here, rename it in Webflow scripts, and then it should start pulling the latest version again. Okay. Let's see what happens. Refresh. There we go. Yeah, so I feel like that title's coming in at a good point there. So that's looking good. And yeah, and then so we can use that to just keep going to the next slide. So we'll start the active slide back at 0 again, move to whichever slide in the list we want. So to make this work with the clicks, to go next, we'll want to take the, we'll say, I guess what I can do is I can save how many items we have. So I'll say let total slides equal child items.length, and that should tell us how many we have. And then I can say active index equals active index plus 1. So every time we click on the next arrow, we're going to take whatever the active index is, add 1 to that, so we're moving to the next slide in the list. But if, let's say we were on the last slide already and we hit 1, there wouldn't be like 6 slides in the list. There's only 5. So we need to check that, and we'll say if active index is greater than total slides, which total slides is 5 and index starts at 0. So we'll need to do total slides minus 1. Okay, so if there are no next items in the list, then we'll reset active index back to 0. And I can just combine this onto one line like this if we want. So if we're already at the end of the list, instead of just adding 1 to the active index, go back to the beginning of the list. So we're increasing that active index by 1. And then, actually, I probably don't want to touch the active index yet because that's what we're using to find the previous slide. So what I'll want to say is, I want to say something like next index. I'll say let next index equal active index plus 1, and then we'll say if next index is greater than the total number of slides, reset next index back to 0, and then we can move our slider to the next index, like so. So now this should work on click of that next button. Let's test it out. Refresh here. Let's see. Oh, I threw this in the previous code like a silly person. Okay, there we go. I was like, why is it not working? Okay, so there we go. So it comes in, and that goes to the next one, and the next one. And whenever we reach the end of the list, it should just restart back to the beginning, which it is. And we have an infinite looping slider. So that's cool. So that's working there. And then what we'll want to do is also get this working with the previous button. So I'll say let next index equal active slide minus 1. Whatever the active index is, minus 1. And then if next index is less than 0, we'll restart the index, next index to be, it needs to go to the end of the list. So it will be total slides minus 1. And then do that. So this way it should loop either way. Let's double check. So that was the first slide, was the tunnel. Then we have the fire, then phone, then trees, and then halo light, and then tunnel, fire, phone, trees, halo light, tunnel. And so now it should also work with the previous. So if I click back, tunnel, click back, halo, trees, phone, yep. And it should be an infinite loop either way, which it, oh, okay, hang on. So that's an issue. Let's see what just happened there. So if we check this out, I'm trying to see what I did wrong here. Go preview. So we said let the next slide be the whatever slide we're currently on minus 1. Oh, if that next slide is less than 0, that's what it should have been. Then we'll change next slide to be total slides minus 1. Okay, there we go. So now it should loop when going prev. Let's see. Yep. And yeah, so now it's just infinite either way, which is great. Nice. And that's looking good. So from there, what we want to do is if we're going previous, we want to change the direction the title's moving from. And to do that, I can, in this slider, move slide, we're already passing in the slide we want to go to. Let's also pass in if we're moving it forwards. And so in this case, going next, forwards would be true. And in this case, when we're going prev, forwards would be false. So then I can say, so this title here, we're moving it from X% of 100, so it's sliding up. So I can say let title from equal 100, and then if forwards, or actually let title from equal negative 100. So the starting point will be it pulled up and it slides down. And then if we're moving forwards, update title from to be positive 100. And then we can just plug title from into here, and it should, the direction of the title should change depending on if we're going forwards or backwards. So let's wait for this to update. All right, here we go. So moving forwards, the title slides up, and then moving backwards, the title slides down, and that keeps sliding down. Okay, so that part's good. And then we also want to we also want to do the clip path, which is going to be, that's going to be fun. All right, let's just do it. So we need to reverse the clip path directions. And I wonder if there's an easy way to do this. Like, would it be as simple as just changing these two? I don't think that's the answer though. Okay, so we'll add these points to the timeline. We'll say if forwards, then we'll add these points to the timeline. And then else, we're moving backwards, we're going to have to do something different. So let me just throw this in here, and let's figure out what we need to do. Let's try it out. Okay, so if we're going backwards, the current slide is fully visible and it's masked out, slides out that way, with the bottom point, with the top point lagging behind, like that. Okay, so this is our fully visible for the outgoing slide. So let's copy that. Let's come back to our code. Previous item. So we want it to start fully visible like this. Percent, and percent. And we want it to, top point should be lagging behind like that. We want it to go out like this. So I'll just copy this value down here. Let's come back over here, throw it in. Okay, and so this will end up going completely to 0. And this one will need to go to, wait, is 0 right? Sorry, let's see. I think this one actually was supposed to go to 100, yes. So this one was supposed to go to 100, and this one was supposed to go to 110. So it's the leading dot. It'll go further. And then for the next item, okay, it's going to start, let me make sure I get this right. It's going to start like fully clipped this way, and it's going to slide out that way. So yeah, next item should start fully clipped, and this dot should fall behind, I think. Yeah, no, top one lags behind. Top one lags behind. Yeah, okay, so that's right. All right, so let's copy this. Let's throw it into next item. Let's set percent 0%. So this should be at, I believe, 0. Yep, and that should be at 0 as well. 0%. And then let's throw it into here for the end state. 0%, 0%, 100%, 0%. This one should go further, 110%. And I think that should do it. Let's just test. So go forward, it lags that way. Go backwards, it lags this way. Backwards that way. I think that's right. Yeah. And forwards is this way. Yep. Okay, that's doing what it's supposed to do. I'll probably exaggerate it. So where we did 110, let me just Command F 110. So these, maybe let's try 130. 130. And then where we did -10, let's look for -10. Let's try -30. So it just overshoots a bit more. And let's save that, see what it looks like. Yeah. I think that's good. The only thing is I'll probably speed it up a bit. Maybe 1 second with an ease of like power to and out. Let's just see what that feels like. Oops. What would I do? Let this load. Let it finish loading. Yeah, let's just see what this does. Probably should remove that scroll bounce when I get a second too. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so that's a bit more snappy, and yeah, that looks good. When this is just a small detail, but when we go back, this title should probably animate instantly instead of waiting till the clip path's almost finished, just because of the direction that we're unmasking from. You'd almost want this title to come up a lot sooner. So right now we're delaying this by 50%, which I guess I can just open up an if statement here. I'll say let delay, or I'll say title delay equal, so like just starting at the beginning, I guess, of its parent. And then if we're going forwards, we'll update title delay to be at the beginning of its parent plus 50% into that parent. And then we can just plug title delay into this dynamically so that when we're going forwards, it actually delays the title from coming in, like so. And when we're going backwards, the title comes in instantly. Yeah, that looks much better. And then just on page load, like before we click, we'll want one item to be visible. So to do that, I can just, we can do child items dot first dot CSS display flex. So that way on page load, before we click anything, we're seeing a single item. Good. Yeah, that's good. Okay. And that's coming in. All right. And then the last thing is just like making this go on a timer, I think, and then working with this little progress bar up top. So I think to do that, what I'll do is let's loop through these guys, these child dots. And what I'll do is create a timeline, let TL equal GSAP.timeline, and we'll say repeat -1. So this timeline's just infinite. And then what I want to do is kind of just loop through these dots, dot each function. And for each of them, we want to add a step to the timeline, TL.2 on this child dot. That animates it. I was going to say to a X% of like, we could try to an X% of 100 just to see what that does. It would probably be, okay, let's just see what this does. So let me refresh here. Whoa. Oh, so yeah, it's not the items themselves that we want to move. It's the lines inside of the items. So these guys. So this dot find, And let's find the lines inside of the items, save it, refresh. There we go. So what we actually want to do is animate them to an X% of 200, I think. And that way they not only slide in, but they slide out like so. Let's just check out this one for a second. So this should be sliding in very, very slowly. And then when it triggers, it should instantly slide out. I think that's the difference here, is like it slides in, and then on exit, it should instantly slide out. So what we might want to do, let's come back over here, is we can say for each of these, a 2 and X% of 100, and with an ease of none, and with a duration of, what was that, 2 seconds or something each. So if we come back here, let's say click 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000. So like 5 seconds per item. Let's save that, refresh, 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000, 5 1000. And then we'll want to manually like switch this item out once we finish that. So, okay. Yeah, so we'll want to animate those out, and we'll also want it to switch the slides. So let's say on, I'm going to do an on start of this dot animating. Let's do a console.log of, we can pass in the index of this slide, and let's just log out that index. And I'll just speed up the duration for now, just so we don't have to sit through it. Let's refresh, inspect. Let's go to console, refresh here. So that's 0, that's 1, that's 2, 3, and 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that just keeps repeating. So we can take that index and we can say move to slide. And we'll say forwards will be true. So we're moving forwards. And the index we want to move to is this index of this slide. So let's, and I'll just open up some brackets here, paste this in. So on start of this line moving, we'll move to the slide that matches the number of that line. And if we save, refresh, let's try it. Okay. It's working smoothly now, but the first time around there were some major glitches. Not quite sure what was going on there. Let's see. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay. The issue is we want to move to the index of this next slide, +1. So, no, is that right? Hang on. So the first time this happens, we don't want to actually animate when this line, the very first time this line's sliding up, we don't actually want to do an animation because we have no previous slide to animate out. We're just trying to show this first slide. So I can say something like, let start it equal false. And then if start it equals true, that's when we want to move the slide to the next slide. So the very first time we run, it's going to check if started is equal true, and it won't be. And then after that, we can update start it to be true. So that way, the very first time we run this, we won't move the slide. Every time after that, we will be moving the slide. And so now, the very first time this dot starts sliding, starts animating, it should work. Let's go. I think it froze up again, so let me just delete that. Come back over here and delete this. I need to figure out why. It's like it caches the file or something and it stops working. All right, let's see. Save that, refresh here. See what happens. Nope. Okay, let me change this real quick. Slider.js. And throw this one in here. Slider.js. Let's save it, publish it, and let's try again. So if we refresh now, there we go. So the very first time that dot animated, it didn't actually trigger the next slide. So that was working good. Yeah, that seems to be working right. And then so when we click on, what's going on there? Hang on. Oh, I clicked on the previous slide, the previous button instead of these guys. That makes sense. So what we want to happen next is being able to click on these dots and being able to go to a specific slide. So for each of these dots, we can do like child dots on click function, and we can get the index of this dot. So let dot index equal this dot index. So we're getting the number of the dot we clicked on, and then we want to move to the dot index. But forward or backwards is going to depend on what the previous index was, this active index. So we can say something like if active index is maybe like less than or equal to, let's say greater than or equal to the dot index. Actually, no, we're going to just say greater than. So if active index is greater than the dot index we just clicked on, then we can move to that dot index and move forwards. Have that backwards, y'all. Yeah, no, I think I have that right. Yeah, if active index is less than the dot index. So we clicked on a dot index that's further on the list. Then, so we're moving forwards is true. And then we'll say else if active index is greater than the dot index. So maybe we're on slide 3 and we clicked on dot 2. Then we're going to move to the dot index, but we're going to move going backwards. So forwards will be false, and this should be an else if. And then I didn't include this greater than or equal to, because if we clicked on the dot index and we're already on that active slide, then we shouldn't move the slider at all. We'll just do nothing. So this is only going to run if we clicked on a dot that's greater than the active slide or less than the active slide. So if we save this and we come back over here, so if we click, it's going so fast. All right, let's just slow this down. It was going so fast, it was hard to even test it. We'll do 5 seconds again. Okay. Okay, so if I click on this one, it should move forwards. It moved backwards. So I did that wrong. Let's go this way. I had it wrong. All right. Think this should work. So if I click on this one, did it move forwards? I think so. No, it moved backwards still. Let's do a console.log. It should be working. Console.log.index. And if active index is greater than the dot index, so we clicked on so we're going backwards, And then if active index is less than dot index, so we're going forwards, true. Yeah, that should have worked. Let's see what's going on here. Click on this. Oop, refresh. Click on this. Think that was, yeah, it keeps triggering the backwards one for some reason. So every time we click, I should be logging out dot index, but it's not working. Let's do console.log dot index plus dot index. And let's do console.log active index. Oops. Plus active index. Let's just see what's happening here. So if I click on this, it's not even logging the indexes at all. Something's up. Oh, you know what? It's probably an issue that I'm clicking on the previous button instead of actually clicking on these dots for some reason. What I'll do is give this list a position relative z-index 3, and that way I'm increasing my clickable area here, and I'll change these items to cursor pointer just so I can definitely guarantee that I'm clicking on those dots, because I think I was just clicking on the previous slide this whole time, previous button, and expecting it to work. Try again. All right, so now we can make sure it's a very small target, but yeah, so that's moving. That should have moved it forwards. Let's try again. Yep, that moved it forwards. And if we click here or click here, that moves it backwards. Okay. So that is working. The only thing is, like, when we go to a slide, we'll want to update our progress on this timeline to match the slide we just went to. So let's see how we can do this. Let me go here and just go timeline. Let's go to, I think there's like a loop. I've done this before. I just want to grab the right one, or maybe it's video. Yeah, it's this one. So you can add like let me go here, or actually back here. We can add a label to our timeline, and then we can jump to that point on the timeline using a label. So if I were to check out this example, so here what I did was loop through each item, and right here, loop through each item, and then add a label representing that index. And then when we click, we seek our timeline to match that step. So we're jumping the timeline back to a certain point. So if I were to bring this back over to my code, we're looping through these dots right here, and right before each one, we'll create a step that matches the number of that dot. So we're just adding some labels to each step of our timeline, and that way we can go back to a specific point on our timeline right here. So what I would do is, let's see, I'd probably run this in here. That way, no matter if we're clicking on the next, previous arrows, or directly on the dots themselves, no matter what we're clicking, we're always going to update that progress bar timeline to match the currently active slide. So to do that, we have the next index, which is the one we're going towards, and we'll just throw that in there. So we'll seek our timeline to whichever slide we're moving towards, so it stays connected with the looping progress bar. And the other issue I was having is, as soon as this timeline starts, as soon as the line starts moving, we're moving to a new slide. So it kind of creates this infinite loop where we're saying when we move to a new slide, jump to this point on the timeline. And when we jump to that point on the timeline, it instantly moves to another slide right again. So what we actually probably need to do instead is an onComplete. So once this line finishes filling up, then we can move to not just this slide itself, but this slide plus 1. So once this line finishes filling up, move to the next slide in the list. And if we do it that way, we actually don't need all this commotion with a start it, because it just naturally won't run on the first slide. It'll wait till that first line finishes filling up before it moves our slide. So we actually don't need any of that, which is great. The only thing we have to watch out for is index plus 1. When we're on the last slide in the list, there will be no next slide. So we need to do all that math again. And I can probably just break this out into a function to get the next one. So that way I don't have to repeat all this crazy stuff again. Just function get next index, and I pass in a number that I want to get the next index of. So all this code was doing was we were saying next index is active index minus 1. Yeah, okay. And then we're saying, so all of this can move here. I could even just say go next and pass in a number. And let next index equal number. If next index is greater than total slides, next index equals 0, then move to the next index. And that way for this, all I have to do is throw this in here, active index plus 1. That cleans all that up. And then if we come back down here, all we have to do is this, index plus 1. Okay, and that way it's automatically, every time we go next, it's going to figure out if we're on the last slide in the list, it'll reset it to the beginning. So let's just save that. Let's refresh here. Let's try it. So if I click, can't access TL before initialization, move slide. What did we do? Move slide. So the issue here is we are saying when we click on these, we're moving slide, move slide, where is that? And we're seeking, okay, so the timeline we're seeking to here hasn't been created yet. So I'll actually need to move this, because we created this timeline here. So I'll actually need to move this down here. And that way it should work. So we create the timeline, then we seek to a certain point on it. Let's see. So if I click, can't access TL before initialization. I'll just, because I do have 2 timelines in here, I don't know if that's causing an issue, but they're both named TL. So I might change this one to be TL2 just for sake of sanity. And so the timelines create it for sure, and then we're seeking to it. So that shouldn't be causing any issues unless we have a move slide higher up. Oh, we have all of these are move slides. So all of these need to go below down here. All right, let's just save it and let's see. There we go. Okay, so we can click. Awesome. And so every time I click, it's updating the timeline. If I click back, see it updated that part. It did that. Nice. And this should just loop all the way back to that, which is great. And it's infinite in both directions. Love it. We can click here on that tiny little line. I should have made it something with padding or something, but yeah, so that moves forwards. Going this way should move backwards. Yep. And then the only other thing I would like to work out is like getting this line to slide completely out of view. Wonder how though. So when we go to the next slide, we want these guys to go out of view. How would we do that? because these are all set on a timeline right now. That's the issue. So where is it? I need to add some comments and start cleaning things up. It's just, so these are in, let me move previous down here. I can call this something like arrows for now, just to clean that up. Child dots on click. Click of dots, just save that there. This whole thing is the main slider code. So this is everything we're doing to move to a slide, and then this is the dot lines animating. So we're animating these dot lines to an X% of 100 over some duration. And what we're trying to do is say when we move to a slide, I think what I can do is something like this maybe. I can say when we move to a slide, GSAP.2 on the, let's grab the dot, what did I call these guys? Child dots. Dot find, and we'll find this line inside of them. And instead of all of them, we only want, we could do child dots not next, not child dots dot EQ next index. So this is the active dot, and here we're saying get all child dots except that active dot, find the lines inside of them, and animate them to an X. Since we're already using X% here, X is a little bit different. We can say to an X of 100%, and that should slide them out of view, I believe. Let's just see. So if we were to refresh, yeah, so it slid all of them out of view. Actually, we might want to do, we can clean this up a lot. Actually, we can just say, there's the active index, which is our previous one. Active index. So we can just grab the previous dot and slide its line out of view. Let's just see what that does. So if I click, that line went out of view. I click, that line goes out. That line goes out. Now the only issue is when we go back in. So this might need to be a timeline. Let TL3 equal gsap.timeline. And I can add this to the step. So we'll want to return this back to an X of 0 after we're done hiding it. That way, next time that line starts animating, we're able to reveal it. Let's just see. It actually might need to be a dot set, and it might be to an X of negative 100%, like that was the original value of it. So if I do this, nope. Okay. It's like, it's like almost working, but it's not quite working. Negative 100 isn't right. It's the issue is the timeline itself. It's the way I set up this timeline to animate these to 100%, because like when we're doing this, we're always, what are we doing? I wonder if I could have, think. I feel like I could have been smarter with this. Maybe we animate these to a width of 100% so that they're always just filling up 100% width. Their default width would be 0%. Okay, yeah, let's try this. I'll just comment out this for a second. Save it, publish, refresh. Okay, so what's happening here is each of these lines should be animating to 100% width. which they are, we would want, basically we'd want only the active line to be visible. So let's say this one going out will animate to an X of 100%. And the next one, the one coming in, next index, will be instantly set to an X of 0. So that way our active one's always fully visible. And yeah, let's just try this. Let's just see what happens. There we go. And then if I go back, it works. If I go forward, it works. All right. Okay. Whew. Wasn't sure that one was I was gonna figure that one out, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, that's good. All right, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, seems to loop no matter which way you go. We got the clip path working. We got infinite, next, and prev. We should still be able to click on these titles unless I messed that up some kind of way. I did mess that up some kind of way. Let's see what I did wrong. They're clickable here. Z-index 3. Oh, wait, did I add a transform? Sometimes when you add a transform to an item, it creates a stacking, like a z-index. And I didn't add a transform, but I'm wondering if clip path does the same thing. Like, because we have this clip path, now we can't select. What I could do, what I could and probably should do is just take these and move them inside the item. So it is a little bit redundant because we'll have a next and a prev inside every single item. We'll have to say is prev, is next, because we can't just grab these by their number anymore. We'll have to say filter to the one that has the is next combo, and filter to the one that has the is prev. Let's see if that works though. So can still click on this perfectly fine, but the title should still be selectable. There we go. Yeah, so that works. So I had to move the next and previous kind of triggers inside each item. So we have one for each item, and that way we're able to keep this title at a higher z-index, and we should still be able to click these little guys. Yep. Whoa, what just happened there? That was something I didn't account for, I guess. Oh, I see exactly what happened. So here we're moving we're only moving the previous dot, and we really need to move all except the active dot. So I can just say something like let active dot equal child dots. So that if this is the active one right here, then I can say child dots not active dot, and that way all of them are animated out. Let's just see what that does. So now if I click here to skip, well, not quite right. So I think what the fix for this, I think actually it might be simpler than what I just did. Let's undo all of that. Whoa, what did I just go to? Okay, so I think all we need to do is on page load and it might not actually need to be on page. It doesn't even need to be on page load. I can just do it directly in the designer. We can apply a transform X of 100% just by default. That way all of them are out of view, and we don't have to worry about some of them showing up when we're not ready for it. Let's see. Let's click refresh. So now if I skip, yeah, we're only getting the one but it is doing something very weird. And the reason for that is, what is it doing? We set the next dot, the incoming one, to x of 0, and we're animating the previous one to an x of 100%. Wonder if I should have done a from to on this. I think that's probably the issue. X of 0% to an x of 100%. Let's see if that fixes it. Pop. Nope. No, it's not. Man, it's a lot harder than I thought. The issue is X% is based on the width of it's based on the size of the line. And the issue is we're animating the line from 0 to 100% width. So that transform distance that we're moving the line over is actually increasing as the size of the line grows, which isn't what we want. So what I could do instead of animating width is, where did we animate width? Right here. I could try scale X. So that way to a scale X of 1 from a scale X of 0. That way the distance we're transforming these lines doesn't change while we're increasing the lines themselves. So I wouldn't change width, or I would leave width set to 100% essentially. And then I would apply a transform of scale, unlock, and start the scale X. These would need a transform origin anchored to that side, and then we'd start the scale X at 0, and that way the scale X could animate from 0 to 1 like that. And let's publish it and see. All right, let's see what we have going on. Come on, don't freeze up. All right. Let's just hope this works. If it doesn't freeze up on me. Okay, let me check these lines real quick. Where are they? They're right in here. What do we have going on? They have a scale X of 0. It doesn't look like their scale X is being animated though, for some reason. Yeah, it's not animating them at all. Scale X of 1 to a scale X of 1. Wonder if that's not how you animate scale X with GSAP. GSAP, animate, scale X. Oh, that's not helpful. Yeah, it looks... Oh, it has to be wrapped in quotes for some reason, I think. That's odd, but okay. Let's try it. Please work. Refresh. Nope, nothing. Is my, I bet this didn't connect. Yep, I bet this lost connection. Save. Publish. Let's refresh it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so that's animating the scale X, and that's sliding over. So now we should be able to fix this by just bringing back in this code here. What I do, I said, oh man, I undid that. Okay, let active dot equal child dots, next index, active dot here, active dots, child dot, not the active dot. So we're sliding all the rest of them over. Let's just see if this works. Come on. Click, and okay, yeah, it did slide all the rest of them over, but that's not what I wanted to happen. Okay, undo all that. So I think the goal is going to be to move all of the dots, which I might have, oh, I removed it. That's the issue. So the goal is to move all of these by a move of 100% of their own width. There we go. And that way all of them are completely out of view by default. And that should hopefully fix everything. All right. Should be good to go. Those dots are, man, was not expecting to spend so much time on the smallest detail. Wait for that to publish. If it's gonna publish, come on, Webflow. Webflow, don't fail me now. Try it again. Publish. Okay, refresh. What's going on? So it works for, it's not working for the first item, but it is working for these. So it works once you get past the first item. Like I can skip now and it lets me skip. But for that first item, it's animating it. It's just we can't see it, I guess. And then the second item, it starts working. And why can't we see it? It's because the first item has a... It's because we never slid that first item in, I think. So what we're doing here for this next slide, we would need to do for the first one. Where am I setting this stuff? Right here for the first item. So I can just do a GSAP.set on the first line to an x of 0, and that should fix it. Should make the first item be visible. Let's see. Yep, so there it goes, and then it should keep working. I'm sure there's a lot of cleanup that can be done, but it's working. All the bugs seem to be out, and we have a functioning slider. So thanks everyone for joining into the stream. Sorry, this one took a bit longer than I thought, but I'll leave the clonable in the description below once it's published, and you can definitely feel free to clone that. And hopefully it was a good learning experience together. Noah said, gotta get Slater. Yeah, after all these glitches with Code Sandbox, I'm probably gonna try it because, yeah, I don't know what was going on there. Floridian said, can you make a playlist on your channel where we have all tutorials with GSAP and Webflow? So yeah, I just released the GSAP like crash course on my YouTube channel for beginners. I also have a GSAP crash course on Patreon for beginners. And on my website, you can also filter by GSAP. And this is every lesson I've ever done, including GSAP too. So if there's something specific you're looking for, it's all in here. And you can filter just by videos if you want to exclude the clonables. 65 different lessons so far with GSAP on different things. So yeah, definitely check that out if you're interested in it. Anything else? Any other questions? I don't think so. Okay, cool. Thanks everyone for joining the stream, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Have a great one.